Minister, yesterday your colleague, Minister Jeff Radebe, who was in Parliament, and he spoke about this issue. He said, when talking to the portfolio committee there, he said crime and corruption were the biggest threats to government achieving its key 5 priorities, which includes crime prevention and fighting unemployment. Let me ask you then, Minister, you've been in this position now for a couple of months.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? How bad is it?
Well, for me, it's not so much how bad it is. It is just my responsibility to create an environment around which it will not be possible for this to continue. Even if it was 1%, I would still need to do something about it. And we have dedicated a lot of time to put in place the necessary institutions to create an environment where it will not be possible.
And the reason why I'm asking is, for instance, it was late last year, IDASA issued a paper where they were saying that corruption in South Africa is at its worst since 1994, right this moment.
That's what I've been hearing as well. It does look like we've gone down in the International Index of Corruption, and that has been a very worrying trend.
It means we're not doing something right.
Yes, that is certainly the case.
What are we not doing right?
Well, I don't know if we as a country, as a people, have got a common purpose and a common intent to deal with this matter. And so we've taken it upon ourselves in government to ensure that we explain what it is that we're doing and ask normal citizens out there, the private sector, to join us in this fight against corruption. We have, as I speak, established an Anticorruption Bureau within the Public Service and Administration. We have established a gateway call center, and we are ratcheting up the capacity of the hotline, anti-corruption hotline, and a whole lot of other things that we're doing, which we will be talking to the public about, so that we call them to come and assist us.
I'll ask you especially about this Anti-Corruption Bureau in a minute.
Yes.
But what has happened in the past is that we've seen institutions being formed and people reporting corruption, but nothing being done. In fact, there was research that pointed out that at least about only 30% of the crimes reported were finalized. A lot of crimes, a lot of reports are not finalized within the public sector.
Yes, that's precisely why we have this bureau. This will be a different kind of agency from the ones that we've had. We've taken stock of what we've had. We've taken stock of why we have not succeeded. And one of the reasons we have not succeeded is that institutions we've built up do not have the legislative capacity that we would like to give to this particular bureau. They do not have the necessary forensic and investigative capacity. They just don't have the capacity to carry through what it is that is necessary to ensure that we deal with cases of corruption that are reported to us.
You know, it's a very interesting thing you say there, Minister, because others are looking at all this, such, for instance, as the assets forfeiture unit and all the other units that we have, and they say, well, I mean, they you know, take your assets if they need to, they investigate. What has been the problem? SIU, for instance.
Well, you know, we're dealing very specifically with the public sector here. We're dealing very specifically with the public service. The SIU has very broad responsibilities, largely given to it by the President, and they deal with a certain level of investigative cases. We will deal with the day-to-day fraud and corruption and financial misconduct cases within the public service. Should we find that we are unable to deal with these matters, then we would refer them to the SIU. We have a cooperative arrangement with all law enforcement agencies, and somewhere within this arrangement, we will not continue having the level of corruption that has painted such a bleak picture of our country.
And the reason why you've decided to centralize it, why is it, as opposed to just using all these other agencies, law enforcement agencies that have been
we are certainly using the law enforcement agencies, but you know, fraud and corruption starts from a very low level of misconduct and escalates, and unless it is dealt with at the very beginning, where it manifests itself in very insignificant ways, then we are dealing with cases that are far beyond what the state is able to deal with within the public service. We're now centralizing this so that all the cases that need to be attended to are attended to on time. We're experiencing severe backlogs in the case that we're dealing with because departments don't have the capacity. We're now offering that capacity. We're now offering that determination to deal with these matters. Should they reach a level that is beyond our own capacity to deal with, then of course we will make sure that we bring in the SIU, the Hawks, and all the capacity that they have.
And I suppose it will respond to this question, because people have said you can put all the structures you want, but as long as we do not see people being punished, as long as we do not see people going to prison as a result of corruption, people will continue stealing from the public purse.
That is absolutely certain. One of the reasons why we were convinced that we had to do something was we needed a quick turnaround structure that will deal with these matters. We have huge backlogs because we don't have the capacity to deal with even the smallest cases of financial misconduct. And until people see that we actually are able to do something about it, they might just continue. We are doing something about it. And we are asking society to join us in fighting this scourge. We are sending out adverts. We're using this opportunity with you to say this is a national and societal problem. We would like society to join us and call into the hotline and call into the Batubili call center and report cases of misconduct, report cases of corruption. And in a few months' time, we might come back here, Xolani, and I'll be able to tell you what the success rate has been. Let
me bring in Gareth then. You've been listening to what the Minister is saying. The Anti-Corruption Agency route, we've avoided it up until now. We've used a multi-agency strategy. What do you think?
Well, I think we certainly need such agencies, and there's a bit of a debate about whether you have one or you have a number, and I think the real issue is how you coordinate them. It's not that we don't have these agencies. There's 11 different agencies in the state that have some kind of mandate to fight corruption, ranging from the South African Police Service, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Special Investigation Unit, Public Service Commission, the Public Protector, the Auditor General, South African Revenue Service, the National Treasury, and so forth. And we have had various coordinating mechanisms. So at a national level, there is an anti-corruption coordinating committee. There's an anti-corruption ministerial committee. So we do have quite a number of investigative agencies that can take action against corruption. And, recently the Minister of Justice, Jeff pointed out that since 2010, 237 people have been arrested, 32 of these have already been convicted, assets to the tune of 816 million rand have been frozen, and 78 million of that had already been forfeited back to the state. So there is sort of work taking place. I think the answers lie in the National Development Plan about not just whether we have these agencies or not, it's about whether they're able to operate free of political interference, completely independently, and if they're able to take action against anybody in South Africa, no matter how powerful. And I think that's where one of the problems that drives South Africans' perceptions that nothing's being done about corruption is that we see very powerful people being implicated in wrongdoing, and there's questions, and they're either not investigated, or if they are investigated, the charges are dropped against them. And that makes people think that you can't do anything about corruption.
Minister, especially around powerful people and the need to see the consequences as well for them.
Xolani, it's important that I emphasize that the agency we're establishing is a public service agency. Oh. I think what Gareth is talking about is the other, multiple agencies that deal with corruption across either government or society in general. We are very specifically dealing with public servants. My responsibility is to create an environment where it is not possible for them to even consider taking money from the state. And therefore, I've had to set up an institution that will ensure that this is done. And one of the ways in which we are wanting to make a difference is the quick turnaround times in which misconduct cases at the level of the public service are dealt with. I think Gareth is talking about the multiplicity of other agencies, and of course we will be working with them because it is absolutely important that we have a comprehensive strategy as government from wherever we are to ensure we can fight the scourge.
Okay. Gareth, please note that point, that it's specifically dealing with the public service. But Minister, the other issue, and you've raised this before, is the issue of public servants doing business with government and defrauding government in the process.
Yes. We've taken time to look at this, and we've looked at the research that has come from the National Development Plan, and they have put forward a recommendation that we should do this. We've looked at the work that was done by the Public Service Commission, and they put forward a recommendation that we should bar public servants from doing business with government. And having looked at this, we were convinced that this is a necessary step, and we needed to take it, and we have now taken it. It is not correct. It is not ethical that public servants should be double dipping, earning from the state and doing business with the state. Secondly, the line is blurred between that who provides service to society and that who benefits from that particular service for themselves. And so we have decided to take this possibility, to remove the possibility from them and take this avenue. But I must emphasize that we're not doing it because we think public servants per se are corrupt. We're doing it because it is a necessary delineation of responsibility. It is necessary to create an environment where it is not possible for them to blur the lines.
Gareth, two issues that I would like you to respond to. This agency that we're talking about, dealing specifically with the public service, but also the issue of dealing with those public servants who are double dipping.
Yes, well, I'm very, I think most of us are really happy that there's a priority being given to the issue of corruption, and certainly it's very welcoming that the Minister is going to set up such an agency in the Department of Public Administration. I think the issue is that one thing is to make sure that people can't do it. The next thing is to make sure that when they are caught and there's evidence of corruption and wrongdoing, that the law is allowed to take its place. So even there, it'll be up to the police to do the investigation, or the special investigation to the unit to do the investigation, and of course the National Prosecuting Authority will have to then go take this case before the courts. That's a very powerful way of sending a message that it's not acceptable. So that's where I think that the challenge is going to be, to make sure that when these people who are committing corruption are caught, that they're actually properly prosecuted, and that doesn't matter how high in government they are or how powerful they are, that the cases stay before the courts, because that's where we've seen a big challenge recently. And then, of course, double dipping is very welcoming, because public servants should be dedicating their entire time and their energies every day to making sure that services are being delivered. And if they're running businesses, and that involves businesses that are getting money from the state, that is obviously going to cause a conflict of interest. So these are very welcoming initiatives, and I can't see any problem with them. I think the big challenge really is to make sure they're implemented properly. I mean, once again, the credibility of these initiatives really depends on when we see very powerful people getting fingered, that action gets taken against them. But certainly everybody will be welcoming these initiatives.